We'll do the things we love again. We'll hang out with friends. We'll put our screens away and be amazed by what's been waiting for us. We'll dance and eat and laugh again. We'll look in our own backyard and find that it is full of wonders. There will be adventures and art. We will stand in the sunshine and we will be free. Where will you go first?
Seeing the fish, their position, and how they respond in real time. That's game changing.
The new 7.4 medium cranking rod from Ducket Fishing that we designed, it's one of those rods that if you're out there and you're throwing a deep chatterbait, you're throwing a crankbait, you're throwing a rattle trap, you're throwing whatever it may be that you're making long cast with, but you want that flexibility, you want that bend in it, but still give you the backbone, because when those fish come up and jump, they're gonna throw. They're gonna try to throw a heavy bait, you know, crankbait, whatever bait you're throwing, they wanna throw it. So the bend in the rod, the medium action at the very tip of this thing, it's unbelievable. It allows those fish to shake, but still stay hooked up. So check out the new Chris Lane 7.4 medium cranking rod from Ducket Fishing.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a while. Once again, for those of you who may be new, my name's Don Patterson. I'm your host. Before we go any further, like I said, it's been a while. So right off the bat, I got to get my buddy Matt Zito in here, joining us once again from his own little slice of paradise down in Nova Scotia. My co-host for tonight, Mr. Matt Zito.
Hey, Donnie, it's good to see you again, man.
You too. You too. How you been, Matt?
Oh, I've been good, buddy. I've been good. Can't complain. Yeah, things have been good here.
Yeah, that's good. Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to all the folks out there watching. I got to admit, I was starting to just suck it up and admit that winter was here, and then I go and see that intro running, and the Chris Lane cranking rod, the Lawrence showing Ike and Jordan and all those guys out fishing open water. I hate to say it, but I know there's a lot of people want to do some ice fishing, but is winter over yet? I want to get back on the open water.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I see you guys got some ice up there. Our ice is not safe here, but I see you guys have got some good ice up there.
We got some places that is starting to get some decent ice, and there's some people sneaking out on some ice that I would question, but to each their own, I guess. As long as you're properly equipped and you know what you're doing, then exercise with exercise a little caution. So
yeah, definitely.
As I mentioned there, and this is an announcement that we've been waiting to make, and the Chris Lane cranking rod ad probably kind of steals the thunder of the announcement. But for those of you who follow me on social media, I have accepted a position with Ducket Fishing Canada as the Atlantic Canadian sales rep. And along with that, Fish East will be partnering with Ducket Fishing Canada. And so you're going to see a lot of Ducket products in what we do going forward. So if you're looking for anything from panfish rods to striper rods, Ducket's got you covered. In all honesty, the only thing that we don't do is the fly side of things. So we've got you covered on just about everything you're looking for. Rods, reels, baits, you name it. So, and I am very happy to announce that they will very soon be available at Minnow Tackle in Fredericton. Speaking with Amanda today, and Ducket rods will be available here just in the next few weeks. Will be available at Minnow in Fredericton, and we'll make sure we shoot you guys an update. And I'm sure Minnow will be updating their social media when they become available as well. So just saw a comment flash across the bottom of the screen there. Greetings to you as well, Eric. Thanks for tuning in tonight. So so that's announcement number 1. Announcement number 2. You got to wait for that. That's coming towards the end, but we got some pretty big news coming towards the end of the show. Matt, it's been a while. Last time we sat in front of these cameras and talked together, we had Carey Price on, spent some time chatting with him. Hope he's doing well. I know he's, had a roller coaster of a year, but all the best to Carey. And, before that, we had an episode where we had Gussie on. And Jeff, if you happen to see this, man, I know you're getting geared up for heading back south of the border and gearing up for another season. So good luck to you and bring home another blue trophy. Maybe even that one from the Classic coming up in at Lake Hartwell in March, I believe it is. But without further ado, our guests are sitting backstage while I ramble. So I think we probably should bring them on.
Yeah, we should. Let's bring them on.
We got a couple guests, one from New Brunswick, one from Nova Scotia. Thanks. Same to you, Jamie. Happy New Year. Fellow that I crossed paths with in my previous job that I just finished up a week ago. Moved on to something new now, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, we have one from Nova Scotia, one from New Brunswick. Our New Brunswick guest is fairly well known to you guys, and our Nova Scotia guest has appeared on the show before, but this time around he's here for a slightly different reason. So without further ado, let's bring on Gerald Foster and Minister Mike Holland.
Good evening, guys.
Hey, good evening to you guys.
How's everyone doing this evening? Now, Gerald, this is Fish East, but you're coming to us from the West Coast, correct?
Well, that's just where the roof is right now.
Well,
I used to hunt, but I don't hunt anymore. So I spend a good portion of the year chasing saltwater fish on the West Coast, and the summers on the East Coast, freshwater fishing primarily.
You've got it made, Gerald.
Well, I think there was some pretty interesting times for our friends in BC earlier, not that long ago. So
yeah, the ice thawed out on the harbor. This is the first time I've ever seen the harbor frozen in where you couldn't get a boat out of it.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
no, it's definitely been I don't know if interesting is the right word, but a different year for British Columbia residents weather-wise. But luckily that appears to be turning around, and it definitely was a serious situation there for a while. Minister Holland, Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you, all the folks that are watching. It's good to be back. It's good to be put that last year behind us and put another one in front of us, and see if we can't talk about some stuff that we all enjoy, whether it be hard water fishing or open water fishing, or all the stuff we're trying to do around that. But it's a pleasure to be back. I appreciate being invited back again.
Oh, you're always welcome with us.
I know that you had Carey Price on here, and I'm in no way, shape, or form NHL material. Anytime I was a goaltender, they nicknamed me Red Light. So I guess you're going to have to run on skills other than hockey here. So.
Okay, so you're saying that when you ran your resourceful redneck business, there was a different reason for that? Your neck was red from the light always coming on behind you?
Yeah, it was the red light behind the net. That's what it was.
Okay.
Well, I'll bring this up. This was, if you recognize this guy's face in the picture, that's Gretzky at 13. I had the opportunity to play him against him in a couple of games. So.
Wow.
He was something else. Yeah.
And how did that go?
Hey, that's on the wall because I outscored him one game.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
But I can guarantee you he's not spent the last 50 years wondering what happened to me.
And you haven't had to spend it wondering what happened to him because we all know where he landed. So, well, I think that's enough about hockey exploits and all that sort of stuff. We definitely have some interesting things to talk about tonight. And Gerald, in our promo, we worded it that we're here to talk about, and I called it the unicorn of Nova Scotia sport fishing. I think that's a fit or an apt description. Do you not?
Yeah, pretty much. I think they've been a victim of their ferocity or being the apex predators. So, yeah, unicorn's appropriate. There's not many of them out there.
Okay. For those of you who aren't aware what we're talking about lake trout. Nova Scotia does. For a while, I think it was a commonly believed or common belief that Nova Scotia didn't have any left. But you and a handful of others, Gerald, have really taken it upon yourselves to prove otherwise.
Yeah, the species still exists. It's what you classify as extirpated, which means there's virtually none left. But of course, they still exist in New Brunswick, Maine, bordering areas. So the possibility is there to restore them from what's left of the genetic stock in the province or from a neighboring province or state. So,
okay. Now, in the time, how long is this? This kind of seems like a pet project for you, something you're extremely passionate about. How long have you been pursuing Lakers in Nova Scotia and the research that goes along with it?
Oh, I'm a retired bioresource engineer, and I worked with farm machinery for 35 years, retired a couple of years ago, and I guess I retired a little too early. I retired at 58 or 57, so I guess I got bored sitting there at the lake and said something's got to be done to help the few of them that are left. So I got involved with a couple of great organizations, NGO, and some great people in the government that are interested in the preliminary data that I was generated, and now it's gone beyond that. It's out of my hands. So,
good. So, what was just some of the stuff like you kind of were surprised about, like when you kind of got into it? And I think you guys we talked briefly before, and you were telling me that you guys were collecting samples and stuff. Was there anything that kind of surprised you that kind of came up?
No, it never fails to surprise you. The more you think you know, the less you do. It's the food, the web of the food mechanisms, the predators, the parasites, how they all interconnect, and now bringing on, adding into the picture would be the smallmouth bass introduction and chain pickerel introduction. So the first thing was finding one. I fished for 4 or 5 seasons and not a few hours. I'm talking 90 to 100 hours out there trying to catch one. And it wasn't until 2017 that I hooked one. And then it was a buddy of mine and I looking over the side of the boat saying, "Holy shit, that is one." And that's the fish right there.
Wow. And now, was that the first one you had ever caught, or had you caught them like years before and were just trying again? Or
never caught them in Nova Scotia. I fished northern Manitoba, northern Saskatchewan, and I'm very, very familiar with lake trout. But that was the first one I caught in Nova Scotia, and it was, I think, about 17 inches.
Yeah,
and it wasn't where I expected I would catch one. Matter of fact, I was done for the day and we were heading for home, and it's the typical thing, too lazy to reel the rod in, and got up into about 17 feet of water when that thing hit. Well, Lakers aren't supposed to be in 17 feet of water in June, but he sure was. So
Now, in that particular lake, and I mean, if you want to tell us what lake it was, that's great. But how deep of a lake is it? I guess. I mean, for them to be up in 17 feet, how deep of a lake is it?
There's a lot more deep water out there. They kind of need to redo the cataloging. I think the sonar units are better today than they were 50 years ago. And dropping a piece of line down and measuring the length of string down the bottom, not as effective as a sonar unit. But the lake has Dollar Lake has I've measured 138 feet in Dollar, and Sherbrooke Lake I've measured about 83 feet. Caribou Lake in Lunenburg County is the deepest one I know of, 178 feet, and nobody fishes it. So, but there is pelagic bait in that lake, in Caribou Lake, and there is predators that you see on the screen near the bait balls. So what they are is beyond me. They've either got to be landlocked Atlantic salmon or lake trout, one of the two.
Yeah. I should have known we're having a conversation about Lakers. I just saw a comment pop up on the bottom of the screen there a minute ago. Clay and Tanya Harrison, the owners of Long Lake Adventures.
Yeah, I've been up there and visited them.
Yeah.
What a great place to go fish.
So phenomenal. I can't wait to get back. I'm really hoping to be back up there again this year. So
I'll be back for sure. We were up there, I think 2 years ago. Clay invited us up for a few days, and we had a blast up there on landlocks and Lakers.
So, now, Mike, just to throw a curve or a question at you for a quick second, is there any, whether obviously I know there's some good Laker populations in New Brunswick, but is there any species in New Brunswick that are under a similar situation where they're either gone or people think they're gone, but there might be a few remnants? Like, is there anything similar in New Brunswick that people could be paying attention to, and maybe someone who's as passionate and as Gerald could be starting laying some groundwork, digging into it?
Well, I mean, in New Brunswick, we are fortunate to have a pretty broad base of species in the waters throughout New Brunswick. I mean, it goes unsaid, and I think that nobody would be surprised to hear about the work that's going on related to Atlantic salmon. There's a number of organizations that are dedicated to the work that's involved with reclamation of the populations related to salmon. Now we have some phenomenally passionate people in the province of New Brunswick working on bringing muskies into a mainstream form of recreation and recognizing the opportunity that we have there. General anglers, I mean, like we've got some good populations. The salmon population, of course, is the one that is the one that we're watching the most as it relates to an extirpated species, or one that's at risk, or one that we've seen significant decline with. So, but that being the case, there's a lot of passionate groups around there that are working on a variety of different species, whether they're in short supply or not. I always encourage everybody to take a chance, talk to people like yourself, find out what groups are working with what particular species, and jump in and help out. The more hands, the better. We're always talking about folks having an empty seat at the table at all these organizations.
Yeah, well, the outdoors community is a relatively small community, so every little bit of help that any one of us can give is going to be a huge asset to whatever part of the community you choose to focus on. And Gerald, the work you're doing, you said earlier, it's kind of out of your hands now. So you've laid the groundwork. And I assume by you saying it's out of your hands, the government or some other organization obviously is now running with this?
Yeah, there's, where it stands now, I mean, the risks were tied a little bit with the COVID and being unable to get to the lake when they needed to last year. But say for now, there's a couple of places, it doesn't matter where they are, but they've sunk time temperature probes. So they're collecting data right now on the bathymetric implications in a few water bodies. Next year we'll get caught up, and the group of us that do fish Lakers will be involved for a short period next year, getting them a few samples to put the electronic tags in, so then they can study them, where they migrate, where they spawn. There's the first one. That's Andrew Lowles is in the picture there, inserting the tag, the electronic tag. But that fish was released last year, and it was at the very tail end of what would have been the viable catch season. They did catch a few other small ones, which is good. It's showing that they are reproducing naturally. But next year we're planning a little better season to get a dozen or more of those fish tagged.
So I guess you just answered my next question, which was going to be, have you seen signs of natural reproduction? So are you seeing, I guess, what kind of numbers are you seeing as far as mature or juvenile fish, or what kind of?
We're such a small sample, we're only talking a few dozen fish every year. That one that you see on the screen there, that's a fish from Dollar Lake. That's a mature fish. That would be 8 to 10, 11 pound fish right there, which anywhere, that's a good Laker. Anywhere you fish Lakers, there's another good sample. That one is, you can see, if you look in the mouth, you can see it's caught with a streamer fly. So the fly guys can go after them. It's a easier to catch, and that's their problem. When they're feeding, they are very aggressive, and that is the primary reason why they don't exist anymore, is they can be cleaned out in one season.
And I'm assuming because they're a deeper water, colder water fish, they grow a lot slower than, say, a brookie or brown trout.
You're right. They live a lot longer. I think even a Nova Scotia Laker, I'm going to gather, lives between 10 and 30 years, maybe longer.
Okay. They're
not like a brook trout where they have that 4 or 5 year life, and that's it. And last year, the sonar units get better. I caught one last year that was easily bigger than anything I'd seen in Nova Scotia before. We catch more big ones, large ones today than we did 5 years ago, and we catch more small ones. We're catching a lot of 8 to 14-inch lake, but we're seeing other things now that we're looking. We're seeing other things, and I think they're opening up a research study this year to look at lamprey eels, and it's not that 4 foot 3 foot lamprey that comes up out of the ocean to go lay its eggs. That's of no threat to the lake trout, but the wounds that we're seeing on the fish are all the size of a penny or a dime. And that's the lampreys that are 5-6 years old, coming out of the sand, coming out of our freshwater system and heading back to the ocean. And as they're changing, morphing into the adult phase, they are attacking the Lakers on their way down to the ocean down. So how many of them, going back and looking at the photos of the pictures we took of Lakers the last 4 or 5 years, we're thinking 20% of the pictures we look at have lamprey scars on the fish, which that's a sizable number of survivors, and most of them don't survive a lamprey attack. So they realize they've got to look at that aspect as well if they're going to restore them. Their enemy is not the chain pickerel or the smallmouth bass.
Mhm.
The lake trout is an apex predator. If there's anybody worries about anything out there, a 20-inch or 24-inch chain pickerel's got a lot more to worry about under the ice in January and February from a 20-pound laker than he does vice versa.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're really making me want to go back to Long Lake.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
yeah, they've got some monsters in there.
They sure do. They sure do. Gerald, we've got a question from Ryan Anderson. He says he fished Dollar Lake this summer, came across a buoy marked with DFO info. Could you confirm that this was part of the Laker study? And do you know when and if any results of the study will be released?
I would think likely that that buoy, I can't say for sure because I'm not seeing it, but it's probably got the sensors placed every 10 or 15 feet down to the bottom, and they're gathering time temperature data. Where is your thermocline data throughout the year to find out whether the temperature is suitable, and there's possibly that they're detecting the oxygen content of the water. Those are the two things that are critical for Lakers is the water A, cool enough, and B, does it have enough oxygen in it? We're a little bit different here. New Brunswick waters are not quite as tea stained as ours are. So I think from what I've seen up at Long Lake that, you could see the light penetrating 100 to 150 feet in Long Lake. But I don't think most of the lakes in Nova Scotia on the south shore of the Canadian Shield Lakes, that water light penetrates much more than 60, 70 feet at the most. The water's too brackish.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know Long Lake is incredibly clear. I don't want to say too much, but we do have some footage that when the time is right, people are going to get a chance to see, and you get some amazing views of that particular body of water. So, Gerald, I guess the main question is going into 2022, what's the next step? And is there any way other people, if they're interested, can help out and contribute?
I think right now in the other lakes, we need to get more time on the Charlottes, on Dollar Lake, Loch. I've seen pictures of Lakers that were caught there, and these pictures aren't from 50 years ago. And looking at the biggest thing is obey the zero retention and do some studying on how to successfully release them. There's days that we just won't go out and fish now. We go out and hop in the boat and the surface temperature is 21 centigrade. That's a day to go smallmouth fishing. You pulling a Laker up through from the thermocline up to the surface, and that is probably fatal.
Yeah.
Even if he swims back down to the thermocline, he's probably not going to survive. That trip up into that warm zone is going to do him in. Mm-hmm. Is just be sensible about it. There are those that do have access to Sherbrooke. There will be some tagging going on in May and early June, and the life cycle of the Laker is totally wrapped up with the Gaspro, where there is Gaspro. And unfortunately, you take a 10 or 15 pound Laker and stuff 6 or 8 mature adult Gaspro into his stomach. He doesn't need to feed again for the year. He's going to go lay on bottom, and that's it.
Yeah, fat and happy.
Yeah,
kind of like me after Christmas dinner.
That's the biggest advice I have for anybody that's interested in chasing Lakers in Nova Scotia is I'm pretty sure they're there. As a matter of fact, I'm positive they're there. But you have to be there at the right time when there's enough feed there that they don't have 6 hours a day that they're feeding. They've got 30 minutes or 45 minutes that they feed, and that's it. I'll give you an example. Last year, there was 3 of us fishing, and nobody was catching anything. And I seen a boat about 150 meters from us, and the next thing the fella stood up and he had a Laker on. He was in a spot where it pretty much had to be a Laker. And he hooked it, and within 30 seconds, both rods in our boat had a fish on. And we hadn't had a fish for 2 days before that. So in that 1 minute span, there's 3 of us with fish on. So
the dinner bell rang.
The dinner bell rang, and we were there to take advantage of it. It takes a lot of patience.
Well, Gerald, I guess hats off to you and the folks working with you and the folks at the government that have, opted to run with this and dig deeper into it. The having only fished Lakers the once, it's a world of fun. They're a phenomenal fish to catch. So if there's a chance of saving that population or restoring that population, I think every effort that can be made should be made. So hats off to you and the folks working with you for trying to do that.
Yeah, it's up to us. It's really up to us. The government can legislate, but if we don't have good release practices and we still want to fish these big guys, we're going to kill them. And even if we don't kill them, it's realizing that if you mishandle the fish, it probably won't spawn for 4 or 5 years after you do that to it, after you traumatize it. But if it's handled well, they'll spawn that year.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we all have to stop and remind ourselves every now and then. I mean, folks like Mike and the work they do to put rules in place and, make sure everything runs smoothly. But at the end of the day, it's all of us that are out there, whether it's fishing or hunting, abiding by those rules. And guess what? If the rule says I can keep 5 fish, well, do I need 5 fish or can I keep 2? It's a case of just using a little common sense and us being responsible, not expecting everybody else to do it for us.
Yeah. And we have other organizations that are dealing with the same water. A perfect example is the Nova Scotia Salmon Association. That's a major river, the Loch River that I'm on. And they're spending a huge amount of effort to try to restore salmon in there. The salmon and the brook trout do have problem with pickerel and bass. The Lakers don't. And that's something that the people in government will eventually look at in 4 or 5 years. Well, here's something that we can restore into these waters. And if we don't wipe them out in a year or 2 years, allow them to fill their niche in the food chain, we'll give thousands of hours of fishing enjoyment.
Yeah,
but it's got to be managed properly, and it starts with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One last quick question for Gerald, and then we've got to shift gears a little bit and ask Mike a few questions. But Gerald, what's your favorite lure for Lakers?
I thought somebody would ask. Now, what I want to bring out is, you've seen that hanging from the mouth of one of the fish there? Now, see the swivel and the single hook? That's a plug type, and that plug type has got absolutely incredible action. It doesn't go waddle through the water like a AKA Rapella style minnow crankbait. It doesn't waddle straight through. These things will make a lunge, shaking like heck, going to the left. They'll go left, 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 and then 6 feet over to the right.
So just a very erratic unpredictable action and just kind of goes off anywhere it
Oh
pleases.
yeah,
Really.
when a Laker lifts his belly off a bottom, you have to think of it more like hunting than fishing. When you're going in the sonar units are pretty sophisticated today. We run Hummingbird Helix 7 on one of the boats, and you can see the Lakers on bottom. You can see them in the transitory phase where they're lifting off the bottom, where their bellies are still in the weeds. And then when they lift that foot off the bottom, when their bellies start touching the bottom of the weeds, get ready, because the show is going to start. And they'll lift off the bottom, and all of a sudden you say, we've trolled this water 100 times in the last day, and we never saw a thing. Where the heck did they come from? Well, they were there all the time. The sonar will not find them when they're laying tight on bottom, but they're there.
Yeah.
And once they lift off the bottom and they start getting aggressive, they like action. They like a ton of action to a lure. Good spoon. The old classic was the 5 of diamonds or the Daredevil with a big wobble to it.
So what's that plug called there? What's the name of it? If I was to get myself one.
If you were to, I won't lie to you, they're handmade here in British Columbia. I think it's from an indigenous reserve in Salmon Arm, and it's called Atomic, Tomic, Atomic plug. We use a lot bigger version of this out here as herring for Chinook salmon. We use a 5-6 inch version for it, and they're called Atomic plugs. If you look them up online, they're all hand painted. You get the autograph of the painter on the thing, and they aren't cheap. They're an $11, $12 plug, but there is nothing touches them. There's a couple of them on there that we've become colors that we've become enamored with for Lakers, and now that we're using them, I'll give you, for instance, we spend about half our time on brook trout, and we were in a lake very close to Sherbrooke, and I was fishing with a couple buddies, and I was running this, saying, if it works for salmon, it ought to work for brookies. And it was 11, 15 inch plus brookies for me on one of these, and none for them. So then the finger goes in the ribs and said, Gerald, we always know you got a few extras in your tackle box, so fork them over. They work fantastic on brook trout too.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
So, well, and you can look up Atomic lures online.
You bet. TOMIC.
TOMIC, Atomic Lure, LURE.com.
Yeah, you can find them on Facebook or
AtomicLure.com is their website.
It's a great lure for trolling. And I see somebody, Rob, on there asked us, have we tried vertical? I think if you bring up one of those pictures there, Don, there's one with a jig hanging off the lip.
There's one with a ball jig and there it is right there.
3/4 ounce lead jig with a 6 inch or 5 inch rubber minnow imitation on it. Now that, when I'm talking about the phases, when they're laying flat on bottom, when their bellies lift up and they're still starting to think of it, when their bellies are at the top of the weeds, that's when those jigs are just deadly. Like I think 2 years ago, I was fishing with another chap, and we caught 5 Lakers between 10 and 15 pounds in less than an hour and a half in the same place. Just, they're there, and we happen to be at the right place at the right time. It was as soon as you get your jig back down, because it's a 15-minute. It's a 10 to 15 minute fight to get one of them big fellows up to the surface.
Yeah. So, well, Gerald, let's just say keep us posted when you're coming back to Nova Scotia, because I'm not going to lie, I'd probably be more than willing to make a road trip to come spend a little time on the water with you if you had a spot on the boat for me.
You bet. Yeah, you and Matt just it's typical. I might migrate like a duck. I'll be there April 15th.
Well,
I'll be down April 16th.
Well, you wait till I tell you I see the Gaspereau fall spawning out in the middle of the lake. Perfect. They aren't fall spawning. They're getting chased up to the surface by some gray trout is what's happening. So,
well, you keep up the good work, Gerald. Thank you for everything you're doing for gray trout or lake trout fishing in Nova Scotia. Been some great information tonight from the looks of the comments and questions. Everyone's absolutely loved it. Please, stay with us for the rest of the show. We're going to have a chat with Mike, see what's new in New Brunswick fishing circles. How his efforts from the government side of things have been going. But Gerald Foster, thanks to you for joining us. We'll look forward to chatting to you much more in the future.
You betcha. Well, good talking to you guys again.
So,
we'll see you this year. We'll get out for a day or two.
Oh, we'll hold you to that. So like I said, Gerald, stay with us. But for now, I want to shift gears a little bit. And feel free to jump in if you've got a question for Minister Holland. He's not a shy man from what I've learned over the last few years. So, if you have a question, speak right up.
Thanks.
So, Happy New Year, Minister Holland.
Hey, Happy New Year to you too. We're 6 days into the new year already. Time flies pretty quick. So I'm really happy to have a chance to come back. We're going to have some good hard water experiences. I know you were wishing that away earlier, but we're still going to have a chance to get out and have some fun here. So I'm looking forward to the winter season myself.
Yeah, I got to admit, I've never been an ice fisherman, but Jason Wilcox was bugging me last year, and I had full intentions of going on the 2nd of January. For those who watched the show, on the 2nd of January last year, you may remember I blew out my knee, and I was laid up for pretty much the entire winter season. But so far, knock on wood, we're on the 6th of January, and my knees are still intact. So I do intend to get out on the ice this year and give it a little more of a fair shake.
It's different, but it's as much fun by any stretch as it is fishing open water. You're talking differences and nuances and different baits and different frustrations, but it's still anytime you're out fishing is a good time.
Exactly. So what's new, Mike? I think I heard you say you have been the list of lakes open for ice fishing. Since we're talking ice fishing, there's been a couple changes.
Well, we last year we opened up 77 different lakes that weren't currently open for ice fishing. I've said from the first time we did that's meant to be a living list, meant to grow, meant to be added to. Some of the comments there tonight, folks were asking about some lakes, and I added some comments to email me, and I've seen emails come in here tonight. So I know that we got a couple. I don't have their names right here with me. I think we're going to do a release, but we've got a couple more that we're going to add and expand to. We're continually looking to find reasons to expand the opportunities for our hardwater anglers. There are some considerations that have to take place when it comes to that. We need to make sure that it fits on a variety of different parameters, but we are very open to expanding that list. And like I said, oh, did I feed back there somehow? Okay. There is new lakes added, and even tonight we're getting feedback as the season started. We've got emails coming in, so we're looking forward to expanding that list as ideas and recommendations come in. So there, Greg Beaumont there, he had sent me that question earlier and then so I responded to him, and already I got an email from him, and that'll be on the desk of our Fish and Wildlife Department tomorrow. So you send them to us, and we'll act on them in as much of real time as we possibly can.
Well, and I know, so there was talk, there was a comment here earlier about Harvey, 1 year trial of Harvey Lake would be nice. I think it was Martin. Yeah, I think it was Martin as well that said nothing beats breakfast on the lake. It's it doesn't matter. A fisherman is a fisherman. Put him near water, whether it's open or frozen, and he's going to be the happiest that he pretty much is. That's just the nature of the crazy people that we are, or I guess some people think we're crazy, and the people who know us, they know we are. So, someone asked if there's any stalking going on in Killarney. This year.
So I don't know whether it was spring or fall, but that was a list that was on the docket to be stalked. And if anybody wants to get that list, I think you can go on the GNB website under natural resources and find it. But if anybody wants to or can't or whatever, get in touch with me, mike.holland@gnb.ca, and then we can search out that stuff for you, because we do produce a list of what lakes we stock, how many fish we stock, and what species, because we stock both landlocks and brookies. Important to note that that's a program that's now going on an annual basis. It sat in stasis for a long time and it was stopped, but I'm very proud of the fact that since we got it back in gear, it's ongoing, continuing, and we'll have no plans on stopping it in the foreseeable future. So, and with New Brunswick raised stock too. So,
Mike, how many lakes do you guys stock with landlocks?
A handful. I don't have that list right in front of me, so that just shows the limited depth of my knowledge on the details down at that level. But not as many as trout. Well, I mean, it's a decent amount. It's a decent amount, but we do stock more trout than we do salmon.
Yeah, well, that's a handful more than they stock in Nova Scotia. So I'm not aware of any lakes. I don't think there is any stocking for landlocked. So I'm jealous. I want some landlocked stocked around here. I'm jealous.
Well, Matt, when in 2018, in the mid 20-teens, we ran into a problem with a hatchery. They had issues and fish died, whatever the case may be, they couldn't supply. So the whole program stopped, and there was no more effort at that point until 2018 to kick it in gear. Every one of us that buys a license kicks at a conservation fee as a portion of that license. And so that was sitting and pooling and pooling and pooling. We had over $1 million sitting there and it wasn't doing anything. It was dead money. So we said, we got to get this back in gear. And so we did get it kicked into gear for 2018. So although we have stocked lakes in New Brunswick for a number of years, it's really just getting geared up again. So that's why I say we're very flexible and fluid with any input or advice or thoughts that people have, because I myself love ice fishing, and that was part of adding the ice fishing license and including it into the cost of your open water license, because we really want to see more people get out there. We really want to see more people get out and enjoy fishing, period. And there's good friend Pete Stoddard saves the day. He's going to put up a link with the ice fishing regs and a map of stock lakes. What a rock star. Thanks, Pete. Am I going to get an invoice for that? So.
And there's Jason Wilcox, 950 spring fish in Killarney.
Right on. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And Jason was talking earlier too about the title regs as it relates to ice fishing. They are confusing. If you want to reach out to getting back in related to specific questions, instead of diving into that in depth and going down a bunch of different roads, they are confusing. If anybody has some specifics they want, they can get it to me and then I can find that out, which leads to one of the two big things that we're really going to work on this year. We now have a new federal fisheries minister, and I've been reaching out to her, Minister Murray, and we're looking forward to hopefully reconvening and having meetings. I've gone through 3 DFO ministers in the last 3 years, and I'm continually beating that same drum of the fact that we want a memorandum of understanding. We want to have an agreement with the federal government, whereas the provincial government, as the Minister of Natural Resources for New Brunswick, that I can have influence in real time over our water systems here in the province of New Brunswick. And that's been a sticking point for me. You've heard me say it before. I'm still not stopping with the pursuit of gaining some more control and influence over our waters, because DFO has a surprising amount of power over the inland waters as well. And that is limiting and can tie our hands. That's no disrespect to DFO, but we're here. We're here and in a much more real-time fashion can see and read and react. DFO has regional offices that feed back to Central, which is in Ottawa, to a minister in BC, which is just bound to complicate or add time to situations. And sometimes when we're dealing with fish species, time is not our friend. We've seen a lot of situations where an issue came up, and the next thing you know, it's a decade later, and we haven't seen any action. So one of the big things I'm embarking upon is in 2020, in the fall of 2020, we committed to working with the federal government to getting more control over our waters. And we've had a couple of federal elections and a few things that have happened. And like I said, I'm now reaching out to the third Minister of Fisheries and Oceans in the last 3 years. So I'm hoping that we can get early into the game with the new minister and sit down and let them know that we're very serious. And we're not going away in the fact that, we don't want to run everything, but we need to be a partner with the federal government when it comes to managing our waters, not a stakeholder. A stakeholder gets a memo, partners write the memo together, and that's the relationship that we want to have with the federal government. And so you've got a commitment to continue the work that we've been doing for the last couple of years to try to accomplish that. And then the second biggest thing that I'm working on is actually from the bank of the river up, not in the water system itself. And we're hoping to be able to start announcing the specific tranches of areas that we're putting into protection. And there's a lot of areas that have been identified here in New Brunswick around water systems and areas where we're going to look at putting protections in place that offer cold water protections for rivers, particularly Miramichi rivers and a whole Restigouche area where there's some areas there. That's going to be particular to salmon. There's some St. John River areas that have been targeted, ideally to help us enhance or grow buffer zones as it relates to the proximity to river systems. So we have identified the almost 400,000 hectares of land mass in the province that we want to protect, and we're hopefully going to start rolling that out. I want to start rolling it out this month. I'm supposed to have meetings over the next day or two to talk about actually doing that. But quite frankly, it's been a hell of a couple of years to try to get something done. I'm sitting here in my Albert County constituency office right now, and at a long distance away from the office in Fredericton. This has been a very frustrating year to try to put action steps in place and then to follow them up, because we don't know how far down the road we're going to be before some other complication comes in place and makes doing our job even tougher. But that's no excuse. But we will be committed to rolling out massive tracts of conservation area, particularly in certain areas targeted towards the protection of our water systems. And so those are the two big projects we're embarked upon. I know that there's a variety of other minor projects that we're looking at. Like I said, we want to enhance and build more lakes that we can ice fish on. At the end of the day, I'm open to a conversation about anything, because it's people like Gerald, it's people like Matt, it's people like Don, like you guys are the ones that are out there experiencing the resource and can best give us advice on how we can better manage that resource. So even tonight, like the comments and whatnot, we get good comments and good feedback. There are changes that I've made over the last 3 years that didn't come from the original factory of my brain. I'm plagiarizing. I'm basically taking the good advice and ideas that come from my friends, the outdoor community, and just putting them in place. A lot of this is just conversations we've had hanging off a tailgate for the last 20 years. And now we're having a chance to put them into action. So keep it coming, folks. We want all the feedback that we can get. And I'm totally there. I try to be as responsive as I can. Facebook is a rabbit hole sometimes you can go down into and you never see the light of day. And I know I miss stuff on Facebook. So I always encourage people to reach out to me at mike.holland@gnb.ca. And let's talk about making it better. Can't wait to be sitting. Hopefully I'm back a couple of times. Hopefully we get on the water, Don, this year together again. But this is the launch to setting the stage for us to come back in the January 2023 episode and talk about the things that we got done.
Well, I'm hoping to have you back before that. I did see another question, and I already know, and I think Jason Wilcox has already addressed it. But are you aware of the introduction of smallmouth to the Loch Lomond Lake system? They've been there for quite a few years, and I know individual conservation officers are aware of it. So I'm assuming your office is aware.
Yeah. I mean, we did pass. I did pass legislation. I mean, I love fishing smallmouth bass. I love fishing striped bass. I've never got one, but I love fishing muskie, salmon. I mean, I grew up fishing every species, white perch, everything. I love fishing everything out there. But we do have, and I've had a situation where a variety of species were picked up, bucket biologists going from one place to another. And loading fish in a tub and taking it and dumping it into a system, which can be complicating at times. As much as I love to fish that species, we certainly want to avoid that. So we did pass legislation last year, which will put teeth behind the transport of live fish that will allow for the opportunity for enforcement to have something to do as a punitive measure if somebody's caught. Believe it or not, up until last year, there was no consequence for getting caught with live fish in the province of New Brunswick. So we remedied that, and we want to see fishing opportunities of all species all over the place. Love it, but we want to keep the bucket biology to a minimum for sure.
Yeah. Leave the fish where they are. You go to them.
Yep.
Don't expect them to come to you.
Yeah.
So, and one thing I've seen a couple comments on here tonight, Mike, and I do agree with this one myself. The muskie regulations, the limits and slot sizes, and there's all those things that we definitely need to dig deeper into.
Once again, that's where the commitment to continuing the work to getting across the table from our federal counterparts, and to make sure that they know that we're serious and we're not going away. I'm not going to stop until we have an opportunity to co-manage and have a significant amount more say in how we manage our species here in New Brunswick.
Yeah, because we've got such an amazing, diverse fishery. It really should be run by New Brunswickers for New Brunswickers, so to speak. Because, like you said, we're the ones that are here in real time, and I'll use some of the different situations of the bucket biologists, and one lake in particular that we know people sat on their hands for 10 or 12 years, and now it's turned into a great big public relations nightmare because nothing was done about it when it should have been. So
putting something under never going to that. Oh, did I freeze up?
You cut out there for just a second, or at least in my ears you did.
Okay, well, no, I was just going to say that sweeping something under a rug never fixes it. And when you're dealing with living species like aquatic species, time, if you're trying to deal with a situation, is only going to compound the situation. It's not going to make it better. And so that's to create that urgency and to equip and empower a province to have the ability to act on something. I think it's crucial. The other thing is it's crucial for not just imminent danger or situations we see, but opportunities as well. Like if we see opportunities as well, I want to be able to work closer with guys like Gerald, with the Laker work that they're doing. Guys like, our St. John chapter of the Muskies group and the work that they're doing. I want to be able to do more than say, I love this and I support you and I'll put in a good word with the feds. I feel pretty emancipated when that happens. I would like to be able to say, let's put some action behind that, and here's what I can do. So that's, I feel pretty strongly about that, and you're going to see our efforts dedicated towards that. Now, I don't know how far we'll get, but.
Well, you think you got a lot of fight left in you, Mike, and like you said, you're not giving up, you're not going away. Nope. So,
no way.
I guess.
I've found that all government agencies have been very reasonable to work with. It's not rocket science. They need our feet and eyes in the field to feed them the information, and they'll react accordingly. For us in Nova Scotia on the Lakers, if we could have 5 or 6 lakes where you knew that they were being released, where the fish weren't being exploited, there'd be a lot more guys fishing them.
The key there, you hit it. Yeah, you hit it on the head, and that's where we have to continue to drive home the message as well. That when we work as non-government organizations like yourselves, and the groups that are trying to build populations, and us as governments are trying to work with that through stalking programs or whatever the case may be, it's the next biggest or the next piece of the puzzle is the angler, and that plays the most important role, because if we are going to take those steps and move forward towards creating those opportunities, there's a nurturing period that has to take place where we cannot exploit those resources. And we got to be careful with stalking programs. There's a whole lot of concern about, telling when we're stalking, because we're scared that's an opportunity for people to come and scoop them up, right? Which is so counterintuitive to what conservationists want to see happen. So I continually give the message as well to our angling community that just because that we've dumped a bunch of fish somewhere, don't go fill a stringer. Work with us, help us. We're gonna work towards building that resource for generations to come if we allow it to nurture it and to grow it properly.
Yeah, I've seen that all too often, and that's I kind of cringe when I see people talking about, oh, well, such and such a lake is being stocked next week. It's like, you just made that public knowledge, and now that lake will be stocked next week and empty the week after.
Yeah. Seen it here too. Seen it here or heard of it just recently here at one of the lakes in HRM. Same thing. The fish were in, and people were just going and taking more than the limit, and it's kind of it's sad, really.
I think we're coming a long ways compared to when I remember fishing the 70s, 80s, 90s, all through there. And boys, there was a lot of heavy stringers of fish that came out of the rivers that I fished in those early years, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we've turned the channel a little bit. We've moved the dial towards not doing that as much anymore. There's a bit of a negative peer pressure associated with bragging about how many fish that you took or taking fish over the limit or whatever the case may be. Yeah. It's because of guys like you that's changed, and I think we need to encourage that every time we have a conversation, because I'll tell you what, I tell you now, I'm from the government side. If the anglers don't care, you're never going to get any effort or energy or forward motion from the government, right? Yeah. So we have to be that ambassador, and we have to be those leaders that show that the elected officials need to be held to account by true and proper stewards of the resource. Then it's a lot tougher for them to duck and hide. And I say that I'm one of them, right? So, but I know what it's like, that if I get pressure from a legitimate organization that's working hard and getting results, boys, you pay attention to that. So.
Well, and I mean, we've talked about the whole idea, if the anglers don't care, the anglers don't speak up. And, one of the things when we started Fish East that we really wanted to, I see Rob Langer made a statement. I'll read that here in a second. I just want to finish my own thought before it runs away on me. It may have run away already, but one of the things we did when we started Fish East, or one of the things we wanted to do, was kind of blur the lines between, especially here in New Brunswick, and I know in other regions as well, there's you're a bass guy, you're a salmon guy, or you're this, or you're that. I fish. If it swims and it's going to bite a hook, I want to try and catch it. It's that simple. Yeah. And I think we need to really work together. And, if the bass guys and the muskie guys and the salmon guys, if they would all stand shoulder to shoulder, and we all walked in to say your office, Mike, as a unified group, compared to this little splinter group and that little splinter group, it gives us a much bigger voice.
No, absolutely it does. I mean, there's 110,000 licenses for hunting and fishing sold in the province of New Brunswick. If nothing else, from a purely political and selfish reason of wanting to get elected, I want to make that 110,000 people and their families happy. It only makes sense, right? This is a massive block of people in the province of New Brunswick who have influence over whether who runs the government. So I continually say that all the time. The power that we have in the outdoor community is significant, but not if the bow hunters are fighting with the gun hunters, or the fly fishermen are fighting with the bait fishermen, or fighting with the lure fishermen, right? When we're splintered off into all these little factions and groups, well, good luck. I mean, if we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're never going to unify and get something done. But that was magic what you said, Donnie, because when solidarity comes amongst the fraternity and the sorority of the outdoors, stuff gets done. Quite frankly, in the last 3 years, the Department of Natural Resources now takes it very seriously when someone calls as an NGO, a non-government organization, because we've opened the door, sat a chair at the table, and let them sit down. So the voice is there now, and if we continue to do that work, that'll live far beyond the time that I have here, and that's ultimately the goal. Doing something that will yield results far beyond the effort and energy of us here right now. Kids that aren't even born yet will see the results of what we're doing if we do it right. So your words were perfect.
I don't hear that very often, so I think I should document this. To go back to Rob Langer's comment, because Rob made a real good point. Overharvesting is a big problem, but more anglers are seeing the other side. The future looks good. And I think Rob's right. I think the majority of anglers now are seeing, the errors of our past and are turning in a different direction. Unfortunately, there's always going to be those unscrupulous few. But that's where, once again, we as anglers have to kind of stand together and, Well,
I guess I'm the old guy here, so I go back to doing my fly fishing in the 70s when the LaHave was a viable river, and the guy standing next to me, I think Perry Monroe, was fishing there that day, and I asked who that guy was, the big tall guy fishing. He says, "That's Ted Williams." You ought to learn who he is. Yeah. Of course, it didn't matter to me then, but the last guy to bat 400 in baseball. But the fishing today versus that lull, the terrible period in the 70s and 80s, the fishing today is far better than it was 30 years ago. There is a lot more fun to be had today than there was 30 years ago.
Gerald, absolutely. So now I come from the 70s. When I remember, that's when I first caught my first brook trout in the 70s on the Tolbert River, my grandfather's, and then started fly fishing there, and in the Wapski River, and then in the Miramichi, and all through that. And I fished salmon and trout. I fished salmon and trout for the first 30 years I fished. I didn't know there was anything else, right? And so here in New Brunswick right now, I can't remember the last time I specifically went out on a brook trout run, because there's so many other diverse things that I want to do. I actually am nostalgic and want to go back to a good old-fashioned brook trout run, because I remember that from being a kid. But I got so many things that we can do. Multi-species fishing trips where you're like, I got 6, and the guy next to me's got 5, and the guy next to me's got 7 different species, right? So we do have something that we're celebrating and protecting here. And I just reached out not too long ago, and I had a tremendous meeting with the Minister of Natural Resources, the Minister of Lands and Forestry in Nova Scotia. He was just put into his position not too long ago, and so we just had a very good meeting. I knew him prior to this, and so it was a very informal meeting where I said, I want to reach down across the border and grab your hand, and you grab mine, and let's do some things that maybe can actually be beneficial for both the Nova Scotia and New Brunswick fisheries. Imagine 2 provinces working together, sharing best practices, creating opportunities that allow us to go back and forth and share that. So I don't know how much longer I got till I roll out the door, but that's the type of stuff I want to see us do for the length of time that I got.
Well, I think that's kind of a great idea. We're a small region, so same as our small groups have to work together. As a small region, our smaller provinces, if we work together, we're going to have way more power and way more viability to market what we have and get people interested in it. Mike, I hate to say this, but brook trout fishing. Remember, we tried about 2 years ago just down the road from my house, and we got skunked. So,
yeah. But that was the guide. That was the guide.
That was the guide. Okay, so yeah. Well, even a bad day on the water is still a good day. So, but
I get great memories on the water.
Yeah. You talking about New Brunswick and Nova Scotia working together, I think is a good tie-in, Mike. And trust me, folks, that wasn't planned, but I'm going to take advantage of it. To the last announcement that I had to make tonight, this is something that's been a long time coming, and we've had a lot of people in the background that have been very patient. It's something that I'm absolutely thrilled to finally be announcing. Mike, you played a big role in this. Matt, obviously, you played a role in this too. But, little one. Our TV show, Fish East, better late than never, will be going to air starting the last week of this month, last week of January, in not one, but 2 locations. You will find Fish East TV starting the week of the 24th. I don't have the exact time slots yet. I'm still waiting on those, but the week of the 24th of January on Wild TV, same network that we were originally slated to air on last year, and on Amazon Prime, the second largest streaming service in the world. So Fish East, the week of January 24th on Wild TV and Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. It's later than we wanted it to be, but I can't tell you how thrilled we are to finally be able to make that announcement and really start getting, because we got some great footage for New Brunswick and Nova Scotia both, and both provinces deserve, the exposure that this is gonna bring.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, it's gonna bring great exposure, especially being on 2 different kind of networks. Because we have great fishing here in Nova Scotia. I know you guys have great fishing there, so it's going to be great for both provinces.
If we can get you in the time slot just before Yellowstone, you just make my Sunday night.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's the beauty of Amazon Prime, Mike. It doesn't matter. You can go back and watch it whenever you want.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Good stuff.
So, but yeah, no, we're pretty thrilled to announce that. It's been a long time coming, a lot of work in the background, and I know we've stayed pretty quiet this past year because there's been a lot going on, and with COVID and everything else, I even hate saying that word at this point. But so I will give you a little teaser. We were talking about lake trout tonight, and there may have been a bit of a tie into that. Because episode 1 of Fish East is an episode that was a thrill to film. Long Lake adventures, lake trout fishing in early fall. Absolutely incredible. One of the most breathtaking. I don't even know how to describe Long Lake for those of you who haven't been there. It's an adventure. They call it Long Lake Adventures for a reason. It is absolutely spectacular. So check out.
Spending time with those guys up there, you're lucky.
Yeah, no, it was a thrill. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every one of our episodes was a lot of fun, and I'd go back to each one of those locations over and over again. But that first episode, I think you're going to see that we put something pretty special together, and I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Good stuff.
And to all the viewers, we normally try to keep these around an hour, but we did run a little long tonight. But it was our first one in a while. I didn't really care. I just was having fun. And
you got a politician sitting here. What the hell do you expect?
Yeah, well, are we going to see an ice fishing episode with Mike, Matt, and Donnie? I would love to see an ice fishing episode.
Yes. Let's do it.
So we just got to get Matt, we got to get Matt up here. He said something about being interested in maybe making a burbot trip. Mr. Wilcox, once again, I'm going to be calling on you for that one, my friend. But no, to all the viewers at home, thank you so much for all the Fishy supporters that have been there. And we get messages and texts and calls every now and then saying, "Hey, what's up, guys? Hope you're not haven't gone away," and all this sort of stuff. And we're not going away. We're just taking a little break and, getting ourselves back in the right spot. And I had another career change here recently, so it's just time to start moving forward. So, but with the
Just
help
got to
of,
ask one question.
sure.
If we do that ice fishing episode, we have the ability to edit. And at the end of it, now, just amongst us, you got to make sure that no matter who pulls the biggest fish out, I pick it up and it looks like I caught it. Can we do that?
Okay. So from this point forward, everyone that's watching tonight and everyone that watches this episode tomorrow or the next day, you're going to know that when you see an ice fishing segment with me and Matt and Mike, that odds are the big fish that Mike holds up, he didn't actually catch.
Anybody that's
there are no 30-pound Chinooks in New Brunswick.
Really? With the Sobeys tag hanging off the side.
Sobeys tag.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, I can't thank everyone enough. Gerald and Mike, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for being, multi-time guests and friends of the show. And you're always welcome to be back. And if you guys ever have something going on that you want to talk to us about, reach out to us, and we'll always find a way to squeeze you guys in.
Can't wait to get a day in with Don, Matt out in the lake. Let's wet a line on a laker.
Let's make that happen this summer. It's been a lot of fun, guys. We could probably sit here all night, but it's probably reached that time. All the comments I'd like to go through, and that's what happened when Mike thought he had feedback. I've got a second computer sitting off to the side, and I went to like someone's comment and I hit the unmute button, and that's what caused the feedback. So I'm trying to keep my hands off the second computer, but I'll go back later and reply and thank people. And, this is just a lot of fun. Nobody's here to get famous. Nobody's here to, we're none of us are going to get rich, but man, we're going to have a hell of a lot of fun, and we're going to show off some great fisheries.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for our guests tonight, Gerald Foster, Mike Holland, if you want to wait backstage for a minute, we normally do a quick little wrap up with our guests, but I want to thank you guys for coming, or thank you guys for being with us tonight. Thank you for all the information. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Same here.
Good.
So
Great seeing you guys again, as always. It's always a pleasure.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. And Matt, I think we're going to be lining up our next show in 2 weeks. We've got a list of topics that we've got proposed. We just got to nail down some details and figure out exactly what we're going to do. And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be that much closer to that first episode of Fish East TV. So, we'll keep hyping that along the way. I've seen episode 1, obviously, the edited version, the pretty much ready to go. Just had a couple graphics left to put in it. And man, I was there. I filmed it, and I swear I sit on the couch just smiling ear to ear, just watching it. So I can't wait for folks to see that. I know you guys did well. You've told me so much about it, and I was it just didn't work out for me to get up there at that point. I had some things going on, but I was definitely down. I was definitely bummed out I couldn't make it, but I'll get there. It's not going anywhere, so I'll get there. I think we missed something tonight, Matt. I don't know if our producer can get this up quick enough or not. We missed something.
I know what
tonight.
it is. I know what it is. We'll see.
We have not had a fish taco picture tonight.
No, I know. I was waiting for it actually earlier, and then I was just like, "Oh, maybe it's not going to come." It's not.
Yeah, well, that's there it is. We can't have a show without a Matt Zito fish taco picture. We'll get you, Matt. We get you up here this winter. Maybe some burbot tacos.
Listen, I've never had burbot. I've heard different things about it, like how to cook it and kind of what the texture's like and stuff. But listen, there's no bad taco, so I'll find a way. All right, you give me the fish, I'll find a way.
Sounds good.
I'll find a way to make it good. We'll figure. I mean, hey, listen, have you ever had anything that was beer battered that didn't taste good? Because I haven't. So
No, probably not.
No, there you go.
So,
you know, it'll taste good. We'll figure it out.
and I know a guy that can bring some barbecue sauce if it does, you know, need a little help. So
Yes, I gotta give you props. Your sauce, your small batch barbecue sauces.
glad you
Yeah,
like
you guys got to get some of Don's sauce if you're watching there. Unbelievable stuff. Good job, Donnie.
I appreciate
Awesome.
it, man. So anyways, so 2 weeks time, we'll be back again. In the meantime, Fish East TV coming to Wild TV and Amazon Prime the week of January 24th. And our new partnership with Ducket Fishing Canada. So keep your eye out at Minnow Tackle Shop in Fredericton for some great ducket fishing products coming there in the next few weeks. In the meantime, on behalf of Matt Zito and myself, fish on and fish east.
We'll do the things we love again. We'll hang out with friends. We'll put our screens away and be amazed by what's been waiting for us. We'll dance and eat and laugh again. We'll look in our own backyard and find that it is full of wonders. There will be adventures and art. We will stand in the sunshine and we will be free. Where will you go first?
The new 7.4 medium cranking rod from Ducket Fishing that we designed, it's one of those rods that if you're out there and you're throwing a deep chatterbait, you're throwing a crankbait, you're throwing a rattle trap, you're throwing whatever it may be that you're making long cast with, but you want that flexibility, you want that bend in it, but still give you the backbone, because when those fish come up and jump, they're gonna throw. They're gonna try to throw a heavy bait, you know, crankbait, whatever bait you're throwing, they wanna throw it. So the bend in the rod, the medium action at the very tip of this thing, it's unbelievable. It allows those fish to shake, but still stay hooked up. So check out the new Chris Lane 7.4 medium cranking rod from Ducket Fishing.